Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies. This segment sponsored by TopVisor.com. Bring your keyword research to the next level. Visit TopVisor.com.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. My name is Robert O'Haver, and with me is my co-host Caleb McKelvin. Caleb?
What's up, Rob?
You don't get the applause anymore.
No, I don't get the applause anymore. It stinks, man. I come back from having a baby. I figured I would get applause, but no applause. It's okay. I'm still pumped about the show. We got an awesome guest today, awesome topic, and a lot of cool content for our listeners.
Yes, definitely. Before we get started, I want to tell you guys, if it's your first time listening to the show, what we are and what we do. We are a digital marketing podcast / radio show, so we are on the radio as well. We talk everything digital marketing. We talk search engine marketing, sausage, social media, you name it. We talk about it. But today we're going to be talking about the future of SEO and
big
search, which is a big topic. And the guy that knows what he's talking about is with us today. He is the former head of product manager for Bing for the Webmaster program, and is currently the VP of Search at Bruce Clay Inc. Now, that's some credibility if you ever ask him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with us today is Duane Forrester. Duane, how are you doing?
Guys, I am incredible. Thank you. Coming to you from sunny Southern California.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Very nice.
We have to carve out at least 10 seconds to talk sausage on the show. Since
he did bring it up, and so
I've got something for you guys. I've got something, and it's life-changing. It's important. Go to Amazon. Look for a book called Meathead.
Meathead?
Order it.
Okay.
Live it. It will change your life in grilling. I swear to you. I have been preaching this since I got it. It changed my life. People at the office, friends. It is well worth it. Go order the book. I've got nothing to do with the book other than being a happy buyer of it and a happy user of it. But it will change your sausage life.
Very nice. So I'm glad you suggested something, because my wife says my grilling game is pretty terrible, so I need to change it. So after the show, I will be ordering this.
See, I told you we talk about everything.
Yeah, let's talk about everything.
Well, we're talking about e-commerce here, right? I mean,
exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, Duane, we really appreciate you joining us today. We know you got a busy schedule, but we're going to cover kind of the future in SEO. But before we kind of get started, just to let our listeners know, I know we have a large listener base that knows who you are, but some that may not know kind of how you started and what you're doing. If you could kind of introduce yourself and what you got going on.
Absolutely. I'll try to make this as straight line as possible here. Obviously, my name is Duane Forrester. I started many years ago. I used to work for Caesar's Palace in marketing, not long out of university. Left there, went into online gambling back, and I lived in Canada at the time, and went into online gambling there, where the circumstances were much friendlier to generating revenue. Gambling. Ran PPC there, built affiliate programs there, managed content there, ran the SEO program there. Left that company and went to work for Microsoft. At the same time, I'd written my first book, and Microsoft called and said, hey, we want you to come run the SEO program for MSN. Moved down to the U.S. and transplanted our life to the greater Seattle, Washington area. Wrote my second book when I got there. Spent about a little over 8 years with the company. Ended up leaving as senior product manager at Bing. In 2012, I launched the Webmaster Tools program. Very successful launch, very successful tool set. Then decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different. Bruce is a very old friend of mine. We've known each other for a lot of years. Served on board of directors at Sempo. Done a lot of things together. And he had the opportunity for me to come and help run the company here. So
Nice.
Now I'm embedded here and helping clients all over the world.
What a great place to land, huh?
It's not bad. Let me tell you, not bad.
Bruce is a friend of mine. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, going back to your days at Bing. I mean, or not Bing. When you did the online gambling stuff, was that down? Was that when they kind of put the axe on online gambling? Did you make that move or?
Yeah. So we started off, we were doing probably $100K a month in pay-per-click spending. And you got to keep in mind the context, right? This is like sub-nickel bids on pay-per-click, right? So moving $100K a month through there, you're doing a lot of volume.
Yeah.
And at about that time, Google decided that they needed to take a somewhat moral stance on a number of topics, gambling being one of them.
Sure.
And they made some suggestions to us on how to work within the system. We didn't entirely agree with that. It just seemed like a lot of extra work for us. So we opted to shutter the spending of pay-per-click, and I moved over to SEO and really started ramping up that side of things.
Nice.
And let me tell you, that was, in hindsight, probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because, it forces the knowledge, it forces the learning, and turns out that that is definitely has been, and will continue to be the right track for me.
Nice. Awesome. Now, a little bit of news we didn't mention a while ago, but I wanted to bring up is the Verizon merging or taking over Yahoo. That's pretty big.
That is huge. That's $4.8 billion huge.
Yeah.
Although I saw a graph this morning flap past on Facebook. Where they talked about the past valuations of Yahoo.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Yeah, this 4.8 is woeful.
It was like 125 billion at one point. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my biggest fear. I'm an AT&T guy, and so my biggest fear is that my Pro Flickr account, which is owned by Yahoo, Verizon is now going to tell me that the only way to keep it is to move to Verizon for my cellular coverage.
Yeah.
This has me a little bit scared.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know what their plan is there. It's, they took over AOL as well.
Yeah.
And those are all dial-up customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it's a good move, right? Verizon's kind of stuck in a space here where there's a lot of consolidation, there's a lot of squeezing of revenue happening,
sure,
a lot of government oversight in terms of frequencies and regulations on that side of their world. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of privacy concerns, and that extends not just to their website and their users and their data, but also to, hey, I have an iPhone and it can be hacked, and if I'm on the Verizon network, are they implicitly involved in that conversation now?
Right.
With this, they managed to pivot themselves into the digital realm. And this effectively makes Verizon a very different company. Only a portion of Verizon is now a competitor in the mobile playing field. And the rest of it is an entirely different animal now, which means, the companies like AT&T and Sprint and these other networks, they either pivot or they kind of get left behind.
Sure.
Because my suspicion is that Verizon is going to move in a new direction and take cellular connectivity along for the ride. Mm-hmm. And if it proves to be worthwhile, it's either going to be a spectacular splash in the ocean as it crashes down, or it's going to work well. And if it works well, then I think that you're going to see the smaller networks are really going to get in a bind with this, because they simply don't have the resources that Verizon or AT&T do to turn around and say, we're going to purchase our way into a whole new space and become a whole new entity. And that's effectively what Verizon has done as of yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, the 4.5 or 4.8 billion is actually a deal, because I would believe their ad revenue is going to be at least $1 billion a year.
Yeah. To me, this is, if you, and I have a history with this because, Microsoft through Bing had a partnership with Yahoo.
Sure.
So I had a very keen interest in this, and I don't think it doesn't really matter how you slice this pie. 4.8 billion keeps coming up looking like a deal to whoever the purchaser was.
Oh yeah.
And this is, I think, going to be Verizon's opportunity to kind of fumble, and I can't see them fumbling it. There's so much upside against that you'd have to work hard to sink this ship.
Yeah. At one point, Yahoo was considered a directory, not really a search engine. Is it still that way, or?
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
No. In fact, you say that, I'm tempted to look it up, but something in the back of my head is telling me that they shuttered the directory at some point.
Yeah, they did.
So
they took it down.
But that's how little attention was paid to it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I was one of the original users of it, and then it just the point where there was so little value, you just didn't even mention it. Then you stopped talking about it. Then you forgot about it. And then, hey, they turned the lights off. And so, Yahoo is still very much a player in search. Their search results are largely provided by Bing, but Yahoo is still responsible for stack ranking the results that the user sees. And so they are still, they still do possess that layer of responsibility, and they don't take it lightly. It is I think, going to be a very big learning curve for a company like Verizon. Yeah. I think that a lot of the structure that you currently see at Yahoo will remain in place, as these things do, for an indeterminate period of time. Over time, you will see bits and pieces shed, either sold off, shuttered, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think some core things are going to materialize out of this. The advertising side of things, search, obviously, access to data and content is a big deal. So, my prediction is they'll want to preserve those relationships with one or both of the engines. Being able to serve the Verizon clientele better, I think, is a big deal. And what never gets talked about are all the crazy kind of seemingly harebrained projects that exist within large companies to do the out-of-the-box things that never surface in deals like this, that Verizon has now inherited. Mm-hmm. They may make total sense in Verizon's world because Verizon has direct access to bandwidth, and they can manage things at a cellular level that the search engine never had access to. The search engine needed to partner their way in, which meant buying their way in, and that was cost prohibitive. Well, now suddenly Verizon can combine two elements that it owns and come up with a world beater in a new area. Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see what they can bring forward on this. I have always felt that Yahoo was useful, and I still believe in their content play. I still think that's worthwhile. I am intrigued to learn as time goes on whether Verizon feels that the portal space is still something worth pursuing, or if there's a shift that they need to make in that regard. That'll be very interesting and very telling, I think.
I wonder if they'll become the underdog and start taking on Bing and Google.
I think that's inevitable. In fact, you could say that they just bought themselves underdog status in this race.
Right.
Mm-hmm. However, it really depends on what their long-term strategy is. Their strategy may be search as a service, and we don't focus on it more than that. Like it fills a hole in our product that we have to have. Yeah. Their focus may be on data integration and user experience and nothing more. In which case, search is an afterthought. Don't know. I can't see it happening, but maybe I'm a little too close to it.
Yeah. All right, Duane, I've got to take a break for our sponsor. You got a second?
Absolutely.
All right. Hi, Robert O'Haver here. As a veteran in the SEO industry for over 14 years, I know starting a successful SEO campaign always starts with keyword research. Get it right the first time or your campaign could be a complete failure. That's why I use TopVisor.com. With TopVisor.com's keyword cluster tool, this work can be done in minutes. The TopVisor.com keyword cluster tool is based on the top 10 search results, bringing you a top-notch keyword structure. The tool finds matching search results for different keywords, then it groups them together. Now you're thinking like Google. TopVisor.com segments your keywords into relevant groups on autopilot without wasting tons of time. Don't take my word for it. Try it. Go to TopVisor.com/Search Talk Live. That's TopVisor.com/Search Talk Live. Or visit SearchTalkLive.com, click the sponsor page, click the TopVisor link to sign up for a free account today. All right, we're back.
And we're back.
So, Duane, we starting the show, we were going to talk about, the next 10 years. I know that's a long ways out on the search equity there, but let's hear your perspective on at least the first 5.
Well, I think that Yahoo is going to make a resurgence and take over the world of search. And this will only work if you're on the Verizon network, obviously.
Yes, you heard it here first.
They'll take over mobile at least, right?
I'm going to wrap some air quotes around that whole thing and then, put a JK right after it.
Yeah.
I think we're already seeing what the next 5 years is going to bring us. And, we've already seen Google roll out everybody talks about artificial intelligence, AI, embedded in search, and how it's being used. And yes, all the big companies have it. Yes, all the big companies are experimenting. Yes, they're all using it to varying degrees and with varying degrees of success. Google tells us that they've embedded it into a product called RankBrain. And then they further go on to tell us that it is the third most important signal. RankBrain is the third most important signal, only following links, which only follows content. I think that list is a little trite, but that's fine. I do believe that RankBrain, as it exists today, is just our latest name for the black box of what makes the decisions. And I'm okay with AI being in there, but it is important to note that as AI goes, when you start AI, it is like having a 2-year-old making decisions.
Right.
There is very little experience, and you can try to give it all the rules that you want. It will inevitably find a way out of the cage, and it will surprise you. And I think that to a degree is why we see some of the recent fluctuations that we've seen in rankings and that we've seen in quality. I've seen things where completely legitimate pages on completely legitimate websites have simply ceased to be in the index, and then a few days later they're back again, and then they're out again, and then they're back again, and it's like, okay, that makes no sense at all. But it does make sense if you're looking at a scenario where the system is trying to learn something and it is pulling signals from multiple locations, and you have physical systems, computers, servers, that actually have to work over 24-hour cycles to process information. Now suddenly the pattern makes sense.
Sure. And then you're also saying with the knowledge graph giving questions, and so they can get those questions that, it can't quite give that accurate search result with to, to sample that data there.
Yeah. And that's the reality that we're faced with right now. I think over the next year to 2 years, that's going to smooth out noticeably, right? And things like that. AI is really good at the bulk work, at the kind of repetitive stuff that the humans don't want to do, and the squishy bits are very expensive to employ. And so that's where I think a lot of that growth is going to come. It's in the management of data, okay? And that's actually going to bring me to the next thing that I think is incredibly important. And this is a topic we've been talking about for years in the industry, and it is, in fact, data, specific around the concept of marking up your content and your data. So this is where we get into the areas of schema and Open Graph and all of these different tags, essentially, that allow you to identify an object in a common way that the search engine can then trust and integrate. And this is a double-edged sword. First off, the engines feed on it. This is their food. This is their sustenance. It's the data, because the data allows them to then use things like Knowledge Graph to answer direct questions, or use RankBrain and its understanding of those marked up items to then look at a set of results and say, hey, you know what? That is more important than this. Therefore, that is number one and this is number two. And here's your set of ranking results. And so this concept of marking up, I mean, say about 4 years ago now, I started preaching this when I was at Bing. And a year after that, we looked at the statistics internally, and something like, 0.7 or 1.1% of the websites out there had actually started marking up their content. And that was abysmal, because if you extrapolated that out on a monthly basis, it meant that well over half of the internet would still be unmarked in a decade. And so, even when you get rid of the garbage that's out there, you're still talking about millions of useful resources, tens of millions of pieces of useful information that are not necessarily as trustworthy as other pieces. And you would otherwise want them to be up there. So that data, the data play is important. It's important for the business, because the business needs to have their data included by the search engine and actually, have that as we matter because we are the source of data. The flip side to this, though, is the slippery slope of, well, if I mark up my data and I give the engine the answer, then no one needs to come to my website because they already have the answer. And that becomes a bit more of a slippery slope, right? I am of two minds of this. I believe that the web is an open space. I have always believed in sharing. I have always believed in giving freely of oneself. And so that guides my own decisions on websites and on my personal websites when it comes to sharing data, marking up, and whatever. Frankly, if Google wants to quote me in a knowledge box, then I'm happy with that because that builds my brand. That builds equity for me overall. Sure. Does it give me that single click or even 10,000 single clicks? No, it does not give me that. But I'm working on other ways to get that. What I can't buy is I can't buy the validity that being shown in the knowledge graph gets me. That I can't buy my way into that. So if this is in, then I see some value in it. So those things are going to be really important. Obviously, we're already in the throes of mobile is the most important paradigm shift to happen to the internet and therefore search ever. And what's going to be interesting about that is the growth beyond that. The growth that happens, people adopting mobile devices, that's one thing. We've seen a dramatic slowdown in the purchasing rate of new smartphones over the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. People have been flipping their phones less frequently and keeping their devices longer, testament to the quality of the product and the usefulness of it. Also a testament to the burnout and the newness of the concept. So there's a stat that says something like 30 days after you install apps on your phone, 75% of them will not be used anymore. Yep.
Wow.
I see that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, that has staggering implications, right? And helps businesses understand things like, do I have a pay per use? Do I have a pay to purchase, or is my app free? Because if your app is free and somebody burns out in less than 30 days and doesn't use it, then you better have a hell of a cycle for generating new signups, or your business model evaporates around you.
Yep.
Versus your business model is 99 cents a download, and as it evaporates, you've made $1.7 million off this, and you just pivot to the next app, and it's 99 cents again. So your business model is producing products and selling the products.
Turn and burn, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, because people will just get bored with them. They'll say, oh yeah, it's really important to me right now that I have access to X, and 4 months later, they don't care about that anymore. They've found the apartment they wanted. They've moved into the new home that they purchased. So everything that they got that was important to them at that point ceases to have usefulness.
Right. Yep.
Out the door it goes. So goes your data, your connection, your user base, all of it. And so, it does make, I think, for a more thoughtful space for businesses and developers in that area. But these phones also bring two other important changes to the world of search. Three, actually. Number one is the change to localization that we've seen happen. And your surest indication of this is the investment that both of the major engines have made in their mapping platforms.
Yep.
And in how they actually grab that data, what they do with it, and how it's shown to you. In fact, we recently moved to Southern California just like 5 or 6 months ago, and I do more searching for businesses on my map application than I do in web search.
Yep.
Because I really don't care. Like when I go into my map application, everything is there. If it's a restaurant, you'll tell me how expensive it is. You'll link to the menu. You'll show me the aggregate reviews. You give me everything I need to know to make a decision about whether I want to try them or not. Right. I don't need to go to the web and involve myself in 10 minutes of research. Screw that. I just want directions. Take me there. That's it.
And reviews.
And reviews. And all of that you've seen integrated now into the map results.
Sure.
So I am going to admit a bias here. I prefer how Bing does this. I just like their process better. However, I like their process better in the desktop environment. Mm-hmm. In the mobile environment, it's a much closer heat between the two engines. Yeah. And I use the two of them interchangeably, and I get essentially the same happy result for myself. But so that's one layer, right? And businesses, especially local businesses, need to understand how everything changes and how they show up in these locations, how they're included, what is being included there, how they influence each one of those inflection points. Hey, for example, if you're only paying attention to Yelp and Google isn't pulling Yelp reviews, but they're pulling Google reviews, well, you should probably pay attention to Google reviews because that one star that's showing up on your map result is killing business to you.
Yep.
And that's a fundamental failure point for local businesses. But these devices bring two other really important changes, and that's the idea of voice search and gesture search. Mm-hmm. Voice search, we know. We have Cortana, we have Google Now, we have Siri, and these things are changing how we interact with our devices. Generations have different inflection points of what they consider to be creepy and weird and what they want to embrace and they think is cool and okay. And as the population ages and those norms for those generations start influencing, it has a direct impact on the technology, on how it's used, which also then impacts how the search engines display results, which then impacts the data that they're interested in, which impacts your business. So you better know what motivates a millennial shopper. You better understand that in their minds, they would rather have more anonymous reviews than listen to their friends and family. That's a trait of millennials. And Gen Z behind them, even more so. Mm-hmm. No interest whatsoever in what friends or family say about anything. Give me 500 anonymous reviews. I trust that more.
Because even though half of them are fake.
That's a different side of the coin. And that's the same side of the coin as the privacy conversation with those generations.
Right.
Where I hide in plain sight. Everything about me is out on Facebook. Okay, well, that cuts both ways. It shows me that you're open, but it also shows me you have poor decision-making skills based on the 30-second video I just watched of you.
Right, exactly.
So like there's always that split moment. And then if we pivot this around to the other side of business, which is the hiring side of business, like I think it's important that businesses allow people to be who they are. And that when you interview, if you are checking up on people on Facebook, that you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, that you're allowing them to explain themselves. Because let's face it, Facebook isn't LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my professional persona. Facebook is who I actually am.
Right.
And so if you approach it in that manner, suddenly that video that we just mentioned makes more contextual sense.
Right.
So now the person you're looking at is still a rational, normal human being because, hey, don't we all wear lampshades at night on Fridays? Of course we do. So anyhow, I think those are the big things that are coming, the big pivots that are kind of here now that are going to influence us. And then from that, we're going to see an untold number of permutations that are going to come up and be more or less important to an engine, which then influences the rankings, which influences businesses.
Yeah, I think they're really trying to change the mind thought or the mindset of, not even just SEOs, but like the way it's done. I mean, like before it was when you did a search, it was just a couple keywords. Now you have the more natural way of speaking, search.
Conversational tone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see a version of all of this where 10 years from now, SEO, and I'm going to air quote this one, guys, doesn't matter, air quotes, because the search engines will have taught 2 new generations of searchers that paid ads are as trustworthy as organic ads, and therefore the only results you see on your mobile device are essentially a curated list of the best paid ads available. And if the consumer is okay with the results they are getting, if it meets their needs, they're not going to care that somebody paid to be there. And if you flip this to a world where the top 10 results are all paid and organic is sitting somewhere in the background, well, there still has to be layers of trust provided against that. It's not just the top bid that wins it. Right. There are other factors. So then what you start seeing is some of the methodologies that guide SEO in becoming an authority and becoming trustworthy now start to bleed over in the world of PPC, where the engine and the algorithm have to start factoring those things into the PPC equation. And that seems like maybe a dead end for SEO, and that couldn't be further from the truth, because the engine lives and dies on data, and SEO is all about making sure that the right information is available for everyone to see. And so while SEO in terms of organic rankings might look very different in the future, the usefulness of SEO isn't going anywhere. The need for SEO isn't going anywhere.
Right.
But if you are an actual SEO, you are going to have to get damn smart in a hurry about more things than SEO.
Widen your horizons.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Swiss Army knife.
Yes, if you don't have that knowledge, if you don't understand those other areas of digital marketing.
Yeah, conversion optimization, content, everything. It's just.
Yeah. Yep. Well, one point I really like that you made, Duane, was that these generations are being groomed and they're using apps, they're using social media completely different from how people of my age and older are using it. this should be something that businesses are taking note of and researching on how the youth of our are using these and how they're implementing in their daily lives to find what they need and to get what they need. How can they actually, find this data? What do they need to be paying attention to?
So, this is a really interesting thing, right? Because this gets into the psychology of a generation and the norms that they possess. And this is the fascinating pivot point. There are going to be a lot of industries that are going to be shaken up over the next 10 years. Banking, news, television, all of these things are in for major changes. The millennials, the Gen Zs, they're not brand loyal in the way that I, as a mid-40s gentleman, and I'll wrap air quotes around gentleman, just, for the heck. I am loyal. I am brand loyal.
Right.
And sometimes that works to my benefit. Other times it hurts me. But I feel good about my loyalty. So even when I'm being hurt in some manner, I can justify it.
Right.
These generations are not nearly as wrapped up in that loyalty. They're more about, remember that a large portion of the millennials were affected by the financial downturn in 2008. These are kids coming out of university looking for jobs to pay down debt and finding out that the only option really open to them was to immediately go into bankruptcy and start from behind, or they could stay in school longer, get more of an education, rack up more debt because there were no jobs for them.
Yeah.
And so this has created a generation of savers, of thrifty people, of folks that, look, I want my Ralph Lauren, but I'm not going to Ralph Lauren on Fifth Avenue. I'm going to Ralph Lauren's section in Walmart.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's still the same logo. Yeah, the quality of the shirt is slightly different. I will grant you that. But it's still Ralph Lauren. And when I flip my collar up on my golf shirt, I look just as preppy as anyone else. So it meets their needs. And ultimately, that is ultimately the thing that businesses need to pivot to and understand, right? A lot of these folks get their news from Twitter. So what does that mean for CNN? Because I'm starting to turn more and more to Twitter, not because CNN doesn't do a good job. CNN is my blank filler. CNN is where I go to get the actual details of what's happening.
Twitter's your live feed.
But Twitter is what tells me what's happening instantly.
Right.
When the shooting happened in Munich last week, I've got friends over there. And the very first thing I did was I didn't respond to people on Facebook when I saw it pop up. I immediately opened it up, #Munich, and followed everything that was happening instantaneously.
Right.
Because now I knew the area of the city, I knew what was going on, I knew the streets, and I could look it up, and I had a pretty good understanding then of where my friends were in proximity to that.
Yep.
And so that allowed me then to calm down, and then now I want to go into research gathering mode. Hey, you know what? I want a news source for this. Boom, CNN, there you go. A lot of other folks, especially the younger generations, their gathering of news is based on that recency, on the newness, on the frequency of this. And you do get to a point with CNN where they're out of things to talk about during breaking news, so they just keep repeating themselves, and that happens after about 32 seconds. So maybe this next generation is onto something. Maybe they've evolved and they've gotten past that. Well, you're going to sit there for a half an hour watching somebody repeat the same thing 10 times, where I am only going to see a fresh news feed over here.
Right.
And there's a lesson in that for businesses, right? You're going to talk about brand search. The banking industry is, I'm going to use a word here, and I'm going to use the word understanding that I am putting a stake in the ground and that I may be woefully incorrect on this. But the word I'm going to use is decimated. The banking industry will be decimated when these generations finally start getting income and getting purchasing power and start making decisions. You're going to see brands that are kind of on the secondary level become more important. You're going to see brands that never existed before, but are playing in areas that are blockchain supported, similar to Bitcoin. And these services that are built on these methodologies will come nowhere and start taking over online and mobile banking. And that's it. I was chastised once on a business trip to Chicago by a toll booth collector who, the guy yelled at me because I didn't have cash on me to pay for my toll. And I looked at him and said, "Why can't you take my debit card?" And he looked at me and said, with the authority of his 80 plus years, "You should always have cash on you, young man." And I smiled and I agreed, and he let me proceed freely through the toll, and I was grateful for that. And as I was driving down the road, I rolled my window down in the frosty, frosty air of the the Illinois subcontinent in the wintertime and screamed, "Who uses effing cash today?"
Right.
Because, and now, granted, if I put my hand in my pocket and I pull out my wallet, I've got a 20 on there, but largely that is for the valets in LA when I go out to dinner. It really isn't something that I use a lot of anymore. I use digital currencies. I use my cards. If I can use my phone for this in a secure manner, dude, I am so making the hop because I've always got that thing with me. It's there. I mean, I can put a waterproof cover on my iPhone and take it in the swimming pool with me. I can't do that with my wallet.
Right.
Well, okay, I can. It's a Ziploc bag.
Yes, that's kept in the Ziploc bag.
I ask you, which one is cooler? Not the Ziploc bag, right?
No.
So yeah, there's a lot of changes coming with these folks, and a lot of businesses don't see it. They're still mired in the last 50 years of how you run business, and see the growing change that's coming on the horizon with all of these startups. They think that's nice. They think a startup is something you invest in and make $1 billion off of, and that's what startups are good for. The people founding these startups are people who fundamentally believe the way, the system, or the result that is being achieved today is wrong. And they are setting out to change that.
Right.
So when you apply that methodology against all types of business, there's going to be a lot of disruption. Do you know 2017 is going to be the first year that digital ad spending outstrips television ad spending?
Wow, really?
Boom. 2017, that's when it happens. And it will never go back.
Nice.
So now we flip back over to Verizon and Yahoo. And that $4.8 billion, where some people are saying, oh, you overpaid, it's starting to look like a screaming deal at this point.
Yep.
I mean, and this writing's been on the wall for a long time. I was in Detroit doing a presentation at General Motors, and our presentations were all interrupted. We were hauled into a giant meeting room. It was an auditorium, basically. And the GM of GM, the CEO, put on a broadcast where he announced that the company was moving half of its ad spending to online at that point. Now, this is probably 7 years ago. So General Motors took half of their ad spending and put it into digital marketing at that time. That was a shift of probably close to $1 billion at the time, out of television, out of print, out of radio, and into digital marketing.
Wow. And I see too in the future that, you have your TV and radio type of things. Those are slowly going towards the internet. You're streaming.
Yeah.
You're already streaming your HBOs, your Netflix, your
music,
everything.
Yep.
That's the direction, I believe.
I have satellite radio in my truck. They just mentioned that they were moving one of my favorite channels to a new channel. And I'm like, no, you can't get rid of this. I love this. And then I started having the discussion with myself about, would I pay them more to keep that channel? And at one hand, I was railing against it. I'm like, no, screw you. You can't have more of my money. And on the other hand, I'm like, I love Utopia. This is my music. I went to school with this. And so you have this fundamental shift that is happening all around the world.
Sure.
And, I can see radio will always have a place. There's no question. It's a free form. Everyone has access to it. But let's face it, I don't want what everyone gets. I want what I want, which is why I am a huge user of Spotify.
Yeah.
And
more
that
on-demand type of thing.
Everything. I mean, I was 2 weeks ago, I was on a motorcycle trip with a friend of mine, and I had very specific playlists queued up for the type of mood that I was in.
Sure.
And when I was in the mood to be a hooligan, I had some hard-hitting music playing there on Spotify and loved it. It was the perfect soundtrack for my day. And that doesn't happen on radio.
Yep. No.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Search Talk Live. We're talking with Duane Forrester of Bruce Clay, Inc., head of search, the VP of search. Sorry, I want to get that right. And we're powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com and check out what they have to offer. You can get mortgages and everything else you can imagine. But if you have questions, you can go on Search Talk Live, at Search Talk Live on Twitter, and do hashtag Search Talk Live. I did that all wrong. But anyway, hashtag Search Talk Live. If you have questions, we'll answer them. Go ahead, Duane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm kind of like scratching my head sometimes because we deal with a lot of high-end clients, and we have our fair share of smaller companies, and it's always an interesting conversation to get into with folks where the future is heading and what they need to focus on. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, the small and medium businesses can make this pivot almost instantaneously. They're not gonna suffer any problems. They're going to be able to make it through no issues. And in fact, what's going to happen is you're going to see fragmentation in areas of search, because if search is all about curating data and then plugging into systems, whether that's a VR system and being able to showcase your information overlaid with augmented reality, whether that is voice search coming up, whether that is gesture-based search and getting a visual result back. The big companies always have the resources to make the moves, but they also have the biggest risk if they make those moves first. And the smaller companies are more willing to try these things. Here's where the rubber meets the road. The search engines are as interested in rewarding the small, fast movers who prove themselves to be trustworthy as they are in rewarding the big brands.
Sure.
Which means there's always a chance for disruption. There's always a chance. And for years, I've had conversations with a few random people who have come to me and said, hey, we want to start a search engine because we think we can do it better than the major players that are in place today. Here's what we're thinking. What do you think?
Ambitious.
And very ambitious. And I led every conversation by asking them if they had $100 million to start off. And everyone was like, no, why would we need that? And I'm like, because that's what it costs to play today. That's what the ad campaign costs. That's what your first 2% of market share costs you. That's what the technology costs. What everything, it is not cheap. And if you don't have access to that kind of funding, you won't grow any market share. And let me tell you, having 1 or 2% market share, that does not make you successful. That is not what your investors are looking for. And so ultimately, what ends up happening in the future with all of these new technologies coming in is he who aggregates the right data the right way to give the best answer to the search engine is now suddenly the resource. So a few years ago, we all started crowing about becoming an authority. Google will rank you better if you're an authority, being, the go-to resource for things. Call it whatever. All the euphemisms apply. We get the concept of it. Now flip that whole thing around and apply it just to you as data, you as a reliable source of data. So how does that work? And does the engine trust you? And if you become the reliable source of data on all things related to bouquets and flowers, well, that makes it a whole lot easier for the engine then to know where to go to get trustworthy information.
Yeah, and it becomes a more even competition there,
Exactly, because now you're not trying to start up a search engine and saying, I'm going to compete against Bing and Google and whoever else is in there. No. What you're saying is, hey, now I'm in the conversation with Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and everybody else, YouTube, Google, Bing, everybody else, because I am a leader in my niche.
Right.
And that's what people gravitate toward. And you can do this. That is an actual possibility with these technologies today if people want to build out user experiences around it and become known for it.
Sure.
It's a brave new world. So, hoping that we'll see some growth across those concepts.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to get your feedback on, too, is the way I see it, down the line here in the future is the search results, they're already personalized, but I see that getting even more in depth. They know, like, if you're on Gmail, they know what you're talking about. They know what you're doing. You're buying all this good stuff. And all that stuff's going to me, I would imagine, correlate into that huge giant data set for each person and just build that search results off of that even more.
Yeah. There's a company in the U.S. right now that, and for the life of me, their name escapes me. It's an innocuous sounding name. But these guys process, I think at last count, it was over 700 individual points of information per person in the United States.
Yeah.
So at any given time, they know these 700 things about you. Behavior, last purchases, credit information, the time of day you log on your phone, where you go to get your pickup, your takeout orders, how often you get pizza sent to your home, the games you stream online,
where
the
you
movies,
work, yeah, everything.
All of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And including things like which donut shop do you stop into on your way to the office? Like, we're not just talking about digital data. We're talking about financial data. We're talking everything that's available that can be bought. They have access to it. And so, the engines, and by extension, I'm going to include Facebook, Twitter, and all of these folks in this same kind of basket. They're data whores. They want all that information. And if they think that it can make a more relevant moment for you, then they feel obligated to use the data to make that relevancy higher and more important. And this is where we start seeing, right now we have Cora or Cortana, we have Siri, Google Now. These guys are kind of personal assistants, if you will. I ask a question like, what's the temperature outside right now? And in my case, Siri comes back and says, oh my God, don't go outside, you'll melt. Great. Okay, I know it's hot in Simi Valley right now. But what if I ask Siri, hey, Siri, I'm going to be in New York on Monday. Can you book dinner reservations for me and my friend Maisha? Siri has no idea what to do with that right now.
Right.
That's the next generation here. And it's Bill Gates talked about this in one of his papers a year or so ago. And it's this concept of a personal agent where the agent actually has your permission to take actions on your behalf.
Sure. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So now if you have all of that data and you know this about me and I give you my credit card information and I give you permission to take advantage of that or take action on my behalf, now suddenly when I say, can you book dinner reservations for myself and Maisha in New York next week? Not only do you know to invite Maisha to the conversation, but you also know my favorite type of food. When I go to New York, my favorite Chinese food place, you can contact them through OpenTable, make the reservations for us, and then put both of those items on a calendar for Maisha and I to share. That truly makes a difference in my life. And you know what? I want that in my life.
I do too.
If that means you're reading my emails and you're watching my Facebook conversations,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it also goes. Look at Google here. Soon they're releasing that home appliance where you'll be, you can talk and it will learn, and eventually be making your coffee for you in the morning and have.
Let's dial that back a half a step, and we'll bring Amazon Echo into the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
You turn Echo on, and unless you unplug the cord and then take an axe and chop it in two, it's always listening to you. And so you will have moments where you will think you are alone in the house. You will say something to your dog. I know, and naturally everyone does this because I do this frequently. And then a day or so later, you will start seeing ads popping up in your internet experience that were related to the conversation you had with your dog 2 days ago. Because something like Echo was listening, it detected the brand or the information, and it passed it back through its system, which then sold it out to the ad systems. Wow. And the ad system looked at that and said, wait, hang on a second. Maybe Duane's interested in this now. He talked about it the other day. And suddenly I'm seeing ads for this now.
Why is your dog biscuits in the shopping cart?
No, my dog is more interested in me buying another guitar. That's what my dog wants. She desperately wants me to go out and buy another guitar, and she is working her blessed little heart out trying to convince my wife that this is okay. That a guy who only knows 2 chords and can't play them together should have 4 guitars.
Wow.
That's my dog's only focus in life right now.
Nice. Still there?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
I thought you were going on.
I drifted off into the future there for a moment.
Yeah.
Thinking about that guitar.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's beautiful out there.
But, I mean, if you look at it that way, and it's going to bring search to a whole new level because not just search, but your lifestyle, the way you live. I mean, home automation, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, you want to talk about home automation. Like 20 years ago, home automation started with rewiring your home. So rip all the gyprock out, run all new wiring, everything at a physical location. One button did one thing, and that was the height of home automation.
Yeah.
Today, you can have wireless devices placed anywhere that only need a recharge once a month and can be recharged in 2 hours.
Yep.
That can do security, send video, monitor your interior for you, set your temperature for you. Yep. Refrigerators that will tell you when somebody used the last of the milk and put the carton back empty on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
and tell you that you need to go, and it's now in your shopping list. And then your phone is smart enough to know your proximity to the grocery store so that when you walk or you drive by the grocery store, it says, hey, don't forget you're out of milk. And then you go in, and while you're checking out, using your phone to pay for this, a coupon flashes up, and you say, yes, I'll take the coupon. You get a discount on the milk. You come home, and you look at your kid and say, don't ever put an empty carton back on the shelf again. And your kid is looking at you going, oh, my Lord, you are godlike. And that is minutes away from us. We are minutes away from that because every single piece of what I just talked about is already in place.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where, when you were saying earlier about digital marketing bypassing TV.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, the sky's the limit, you know?
Well, and there's beyond just that. I mean, you know, take us into the realm of affinity programs, for example. When I worked at Caesar's Palace, I created the affinity program. And for those who aren't quite clear on it, if you ever go to a casino and you put one of their casino cards in the machine and you rack up points on the card and you get free parking, that's the affinity program.
Yeah.
You spend money, they give you a fraction of that back in perceived value, and you feel good about spending the money. So affinity programs, though, are probably after email, or sorry, they're before email in terms of creating a connection with someone's life. They are a way, and Starbucks is brilliant at this. You can, if you are a member of Starbucks's affinity program, you can go online, go through the app, place an order for something, and just show up and take it. No waiting in line, no talking to anyone, no trying to explain how to spell your name, because that happens all the time. And those systems already exist today. So now go ahead and start lumping affinity programs into this entire scenario again. And now we're talking about building loyalty to brands in a way that is difficult to do online, but very easy to do offline. Mm-hmm. And that's going to start having real implications as well. And again, if you're trusted by that generation, you're going to become the flavor of the moment, and you're going to skyrocket in popularity, and you're going to be the controlling interest in any given conversation. And businesses, they're not focused on this. They're not thinking about these things. They think about it in broad strokes, but not in terms of, I believe in it, I have to take an action on it, I have to go because my future is here. And if I don't, I'm leaving myself open. And so there's going to be a lot of churn on the high end of businesses over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now, so let's see. I think we have a lot to look forward to. Pretty bright future. I mean,
I'm tremendously excited about it. I mean, when I was at Microsoft for 8 years, I saw the inside of so many different projects, some related to search, some not. And, things like HoloLens and VR, this excites me in a way that, the very inklings of this started a decade plus ago, and it seemed like so much promise, but the hardware wasn't there.
Yeah.
And, I was a Google Glass holder, and, that was a tremendous waste of time and money. However, Google learned a lot from it, and I'm sure it's going to play a role in whatever the future looks like. And so that's good. I think that we're going to start seeing a scenario that looks like so many movies out there.
Yeah.
Ads will follow us around. Personalization is the baseline. It's the table stakes. If you're not there and you're just doing broad shotgun approaches, you'll be spotted. The pattern will be spotted, and you'll be squashed out of existence as a spammer. That's it. And so I think there's really a lot to look forward to. And a lot of people are going to bemoan this and say, oh, privacy, and that's creepy and whatever else. And it's like, you know what? Get over your trite sayings. You just want to hear yourself say the word creepy out loud. The reality is these things actually will bring convenience to our everyday lives. And I don't know about you, but I want to spend more time with my family. I want to have things done for me so that I don't have to worry about it or think about it. Or if you're anything like me, you have the most incredible ideas and they pop into your head, and you know that you will save planet Earth with this idea. But in the time it takes you to find a way to record that idea and flesh it out, you've already forgotten it. Imagine if you had an agent who you could just tell the idea to, and then you could start gathering information and make it into a project, and then help you actually set out work items on it, and then schedule those work items. Holy crap, we would all get so much more done in half the time.
Yeah. maybe building a mobile app would not, you wouldn't have to actually develop it. You know, you just say, here's the idea. This is what I want it to do. And maybe.
Right. So the back end, the back end of building the app becomes commoditized and automated. And here we go. And if you look at something like Google AMP, for an example, AMP is a very stripped down, accelerated mobile pages, very stripped down way of representing your content so that it is extremely mobile friendly. So there's nothing that really stops you from taking that exact same template and applying it to an app scenario, in which case everybody has free access to it. That's the easy part. The hard part is getting the data. Mm-hmm. So if you have access to the data, or you can manufacture the data and it's trustworthy and reliable, well then, dude, you're 98% of the way to having a viable business.
Yep. Amen to
that. Yeah, and I'm like, these kinds of things, I mean, they exist right now, but we need a few more iterations of them to stabilize and then start to become more mainstream. There was I had started to build an app about I want to say 4 or 5 years ago now. I had a Windows phone and I was looking to curate news from the industry. I already do this socially, and I wanted to take all that data that I was curating and have it show up in a news app for myself so that I could read the news on my phone, because that's where I like to read my news. And there was no app out there for Windows Phone like this. So I started teaching myself how to build an actual app and using a service that allowed me to drag and drop WYSIWYG, basically, to build a basic app. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my timing was all wrong, because the first generation of the Windows App Store ceased to exist as mine was in for approval. So that whole thing imploded. And then when the new generation came out, I wasn't compliant with that, so I had to start all over again. And so by the time I got that going, they moved to the Universal App Store, and that petered out. I've never done anything with it. But my point behind this is, all of us are capable of doing this if we think we have a good idea today. And it's about the data. And if we take this all the way right back around to the front of it, SEO is about managing and showcasing our data. That's what it is. And if we're not investing in it, if we're not doing it properly, we're missing the opportunity. And large businesses, they're still struggling with some of this, and they need to move quicker on it. They know they need to be more agile, but I don't think they see the iceberg coming down the stream here.
Yep, I agree. Duane, we are out of time. We'd love to have you back, man. I mean, we love talking this stuff.
I would love to come back and talk with you guys. You guys rock. I don't know if your mom's ever told you that, but you guys are special boys.
Well, thank you so much, Duane.
Thanks for being on, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tune in next week, guys, to Search Talk Live. We have, what's her name?
Aleda Solis, the international SEO consultant. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, but we're going to talk about organic search. It's going to be a great episode.
Duane, we want to thank you for being on the show. We want to thank everybody for listening and your support. Please go to, if you're listening to us on iHeartRadio or iTunes or anything, please visit our website, Search Talk Live, and listen to past episodes. You can listen to...
You can check out this episode if you happen to tune in the middle or missed any portion of the episode that we had with Duane Forrester. You can go to searchtalklive.com and check it out on past shows. We'll also be tweeting it out after the show.
Yeah, and I suggest if you guys would sign up for the mailing list, the newsletter, because we give away free stuff. We give all kinds of good information, up-and-coming guests and that type of stuff. And if you enjoy the show, please visit topvisor.com. That's one of our new sponsors. If you go to the Search Talk Live website and go to our sponsors page, you can go to Top Visor and click on the link and check them out. Yep. Great tool.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we appreciate it, Duane. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us and drop some future SEO knowledge. It was a great episode. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you tune in next Tuesday at 3:30. Everybody have a good rest of the week.
Peace.
We'll see you next week.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.